My name is Vladислав Sergeyevich. Let me introduce to you our investigation, epidemiological aspects of type 2 diabetes mellitus in urban and rural residents. Diabetes mellitus is endocrine metabolic diseases caused by insulin deficiency or its inefficiency, which is manifested by chronic hypoglycemia and all types of metabolic disorders. The relevance of the topic includes social problems that increase quality of life, early disability, loss of productivity, premature mortality, biological problems, disorder of the pancreas, resistance to insulin, and defect of secretion of insulin in the pancreas. Medical problems, 15% of patients have disorder of cardiovascular system, 20% of patients have retinopathy, and 20% of patients have microalbuminuria, and 10% of patients have renal failure. The purpose of research is investigation of epidemiological aspects of type 2 diabetes mellitus in urban and rural population among the population of Lobono district. Research objectives, let me skip this. Scientific novelty include the dynamic of the hospitalization rate of diabetic patient can be specified, which is growing by 10% every year. For the first time, scientific information on the prevalence of risk factors among urban and rural population of Lobono district has been updated. It has been found that behavioral and dietary features such as sedentary lifestyle in 72% and improper eating in 77% of patients are more common among urban residents. Object of research is epidemiology of type 2 diabetes mellitus, and the subject of research is prevalence of type 2 diabetes mellitus and the prevalence of risk factor for type 2 diabetes mellitus. Practical value. The conclusion of our work can be used as a recommendation for primary prevention of type 2 diabetes mellitus. Research materials and methods, bibliosemantic, epidemiological, sociological, and statistical. The research was performed for the period from 2015 to 2018 on the basis of Lobono Central District Hospital based on surveys of patients with diabetes mellitus. During our investigation, it has been determined that in 18% of patients of therapeutic profile have main or concomitant diagnosis of type 2 diabetes mellitus. So in 2015, the prevalence of diabetes mellitus in Lobono district contained 353.3 patients on 10,000 population. In 2016, it was 393.1 on 10,000 population, growth of rate 11 and 3%. In 2017, it was 432.4, growth rate 10%. In 2018, it was 471.6 and growth rate 9.1%. So the number of patients increased with 10%, growth rate 10%. Patients suffering from diabetes mellitus were divided into two groups, those who live in town and those who live in countryside. Average age of patients were 58 years. Questioning with analyzing the statistical data, there was determined that 77% of urban residents eat food only from markets. They eat a lot of food with excess of easily digestible carbohydrates and insufficiency amount vegetable and fruits in their diet. When otherwise 91% of rural population eat food from their own garden, so they eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Also, 72% of urban residents take the bus or their vehicle to get to their work, so they keep sedentary lifestyle. When the 87% of rural residents have active lifestyle and do physical work. Based on the survey data, we determined that among the patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus, the early onset of the disease were observed in rural residents, namely in 54% before the age of 40 years, 54% of urban residents were diagnosed with diabetes mellitus, to 40% in rural population. Also, analyzing the survey data, we determined that the diabetes complications such as hypertension is more common, namely in 64% in urban residents, to 47% in rural residents. Among the urban residents, the diabetes have more severe cause and insulin dependence was more observed in 41% in urban residents and in 27% in rural residents. Based on the result of our study, namely the identified prevalence of risk factors, we created a model of a health education work to prevent prevalence of type 2 diabetes mellitus. The identified risks have become markers of our work, so it is necessary to emphasize the importance of a healthy lifestyle and regular medical checkups after 40 years for early detection of hypertension and elevated glucose level for the earliest possible treatment of mild form of these pathologies. At the end of our work, we came to the following conclusions. The comprehensive scientific epidemiological study has determined a high prevalence of type 2 diabetes mellitus among the population of Lopana district. It has been established that the hospital incidence of diabetes mellitus among the residents of Lopana district is growing by an average of 10% every year. It has been found that 18% of Lopana district patients of a therapeutic profile have a concomitant diagnosis of diabetes mellitus. The prevalence of behavioral, biological, and medical risk factors among urban and rural residents for type 2 diabetes has been determined. Behavioral, biological, and medical. The differences in the prevalence of risk factor and complication of diabetes mellitus among urban and rural residents have been studied. Behavioral and dietary features such as sedentary lifestyle is 72%, and improper nutrition in 77% of patients are more common among the urban residents. It is proud that the disease is more severe among urban residents, namely such a complication as hypertension is more common in 64% of patients and insulin dependence is more often observed in 41% of patients. The model of conducting health education activities on risk factor for diabetes mellitus is scientifically sustained, which on the basis of select risk factors allow it to be targetedly carried out not only in the specific district but also in other administrative territorial entities. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Thank you for your reports, guys. If you have some questions, please you still be active. You know that your questions may define the total results. That is, please, if you have your time, please, your questions. Dear colleagues, any questions? Charles, Elena, Sergey, Galina, Arindam. No?
No, ma'am.
So we have one question, so just wait. Hello.
Hello.
Tell me, please, you determined as object of your study epidemiology of diabetes. Is it correct? What do you think? It feels epidemiology is science. Yeah. So your object can be determined as health of population. Yes. Next question. You have information about difference between prevalence of risk factors among urban and rural population. But your presentation doesn't have information about statistical reliability of these differences. What can you tell us about it?
Statistical reliability, yeah?
So we have difference between prevalence of risk factor among urban and rural population, but we have no information about statistical reliability of this difference. So you had to do evaluation of statistical reliability of your results.
Okay.
Yes.
Also, this information is not absolutely accurate because some factors of life a patient can hold from the questionnaire, and this is not also accurate.
Well, it's not difficult to calculate appropriate indices. Well, thanks.
Thank you.